Hey, I guess we're live. This is Gavagai, and I'm here with Trey Jadlow. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, that's right, Trey Jadlow.
Jadlow,
You
okay.
got it. Uh-huh.
And we had some just brief exchanges on Google Plus, and Trey watched one of my videos or so today, and uh, asked if we could have a conversation. Um, if you are not familiar with me, I was once a believer. I spent 30 years as a Christian. Grew up in the church, and uh, came to a point in my life where those beliefs didn't make sense to me anymore, and I realized that I wasn't a believer. Trey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Trey Jadlow. I live in the Kansas City area. I'm a dental technician by trade. Uh, um, I've been a Christian, I think, 28 years. I've Sadly, I'm recently divorced. My wife recently left me, and we have 6 children together. Um, and I really like talking about issues of ultimacy. I'm fascinated by such things, so I kind of enjoy engagement on those things, and like to think about stuff too as well. I enjoy having thoughtful interaction, and I'm hoping maybe we can have a little bit of that tonight with you, Gavagai.
Great. I didn't really put together a plan here. I just thought we could just wing it and have a conversation. Do you want to go ahead and start, or did you have any questions for
Well,
me?
yeah. Why don't we go ahead? Well, actually, yeah. Can we just start there? I'm curious because I know nothing about you. I've seen your icon in a few Hangouts. Maybe we've passed, inadvertently in a Hangouts or something. I don't know, but I don't know anything about you. You were commenting about a hangout. I guess it was it you or some kind of interview you had with I'm not even sure his name. Is it John Long?
John Lawn, yes.
Yeah, and I actually was researching him because he and another guy, or there were three of us, another friend of mine, were engaging with him on a Facebook page, and he's a presuppositionalist, and he was very odd in the way that he related to people, and couldn't quite figure him out, and he was about to get booted out of there. And he said that he had a lot of experience, and so I went and checked him out on YouTube. The only thing I could find was yours, and I listened to it. And toward the end, he said he told you that was his first hangout last month, and so I was like, okay. So anyway, so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and engage him, and I put a message there and said, hey, I'd like to engage with you a little bit. So I would like to just start out talking about maybe presuppositional or apologetic methodologies. But before we do that, I was wondering if you might be able to tell me a little bit more about yourself. Um, what may I ask the denominational Christianity that you practice? I'm just kind of curious a little bit more of your background, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in the Assemblies of God Church, and I considered myself an evangelical fundamentalist Christian toward the end of my kind of life as a believer. I would have classified myself as a more liberal Christian, but growing up in the church, I had very kind of conservative religious and also social political views. I also was very committed and believed, uh, what the church taught, uh, really to my core. Growing up, I felt like I was allowed to question, but the answers that I was given at the time, growing up and things, and even I even went to a Christian university to start off out of college, or I mean out of high school rather, uh,
Where did
because
you go?
I went to Evangel University in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, so you went to the Mecca.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, Yeah, and I mean, I was real active in the youth group. I went on a missions trip. Uh, I was baptized in water, and believed that I was, quote unquote, baptized in the Holy Spirit, and
Mhm.
spoke in tongues and things. Um, so I mean, I guess that pretty much sums things up for me.
Okay.
I guess let me just add one more thing. Um, kind of as I came into adulthood and started a family and things, I began to question some of the political beliefs because I was interested in understanding the Bible, um, from an objective perspective, and I believed that the Bible held the truth, and my political views began to shift toward the center and then toward the left even, reading the New Testament and things especially, but even there's a lot of things in the Old Testament that about caring for the poor and things, so all of that made an impression on me, and I started questioning more and more and more, as I began to be skeptical and somewhat dubious about the things that I had been taught growing up. Um, so that's kind of how my journey began, and then from there things kind of fell apart.
Um, we might have a little bit in common in that respect. I kind of grew up in a charismatic influence.
Oh, you broke up here. Shoot. I can hear you now. Are you
Oh,
there?
yeah. Have you heard of the organization called Youth with a Mission?
Um,
No,
I think I've heard of it, but I really don't know anything about it.
it's just a youth missions organization, but it's charismatic, and so I have a lot of charismatic roots. Did you ever hear of like Kansas City Fellowship or International House of Prayer
I've
or
heard of
anything?
International House of Prayer.
Okay, well, they kind of have some ties, kind of with a lot of people with the Assemblies of God. It's a charismatic movement. It's
Sure.
really whacked out though. But I was a part of that movement for a while, and I ended up pretty much completely leaving the charismatic movement just over a lot of inconsistencies that I saw. But anyway, I feel at least a little bit of affinity with you there in the Assemblies of God, and Assemblies of God are pretty tolerant when it comes to questioning things. There are some fundamentalist groups that don't even allow something like that. So I appreciate that. That's helpful to me. Um,
Yeah, it's
so
interesting too. Just the culture. To me, it seemed I grew up in Wisconsin, and it seemed that kind of the further south I went, I now live in Arkansas, and uh, it seemed like the culture became more and more conservative, even within the Assemblies of God churches,
yeah,
um, in a variety of different ways. But
yeah.
I went through some culture shock even in in Missouri as I was in the church and things.
Yeah, it's very different.
Because
I actually, when I went to YWAM, it's called YWAM, the missions organization. It was in Northwest Arkansas. It was in near Fayetteville, and so that the South culture. I'm not a big fan of the South culture
yeah,
myself. I prefer a little bit North. Kansas is kind of an interesting kind of a hybrid between the two. I really like the Christianity that's practiced here, but anyway, it's very cultural and very external and not very rational or cognitive. But the people are generally pretty nice. But I don't know. I never really could click with Arkansas or even in the South when I go there. It's nice and everything like the people, but I'm not a big fan of that
sure.
expression of Christianity. Many times there are a lot of good people there, but anyway. Okay, so we talked about that. So maybe we could transition a little bit because I had some I had a lot of agreement with you in your critique of John's presuppositionalism, and I think actually you were exactly right. I'm in a quandary with this whole thing because I don't want to be criticizing my brothers and sisters in Christ for the way that they do things on a secondary issue and to make a secondary a primary and sit here be fighting about trivial things before watching world. But at the same time, the more I interact with presuppositionalism, the more I'm concerned that it's exactly what we don't need in our culture right now, for many of the same reasons that you gave. You had said that, and you said something exactly which I have said, is, when children, I think you said when children grow into young adults and they go to school, and say, for example, they go to college and they have to interact on their own with their faith, presuppositionalism is not something that is going to be helpful to them at all. Did you say something like that?
Yeah, right at the end of that video, because he's apparently a minister of in some denomination. I'm not sure which
Oh, really?
denomination. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, that's my reaction too. But and he had expressed how he felt that this line of argumentation that he uses would help to, I don't know if he used the word inoculate, but that was kind of the sense that I got, to protect their youth against kind of the ideologies and things that they might come across at a university and in colleges and things, because it was his perception that kids were leaving, going off to college, and then not coming back to the church. So,
yeah, I think what it does is it actually functions to do the exact opposite of what it's desired to do, if that is the goal. Because I don't think, even in the Bible, I don't think God ever called anybody to believe and presuppose him in any sense. That's what the whole, people say, oh, I can't believe the Bible because of all the miracles. But what I say is the only reason I believe it is because of the miracles. Because that's what the whole purpose of the miracle is to verify the message of the person who is giving the message, to verify that they are speaking for God. And so God is all about proofs. God is all about evidence. Now, some people will say, like, doubting Thomas, and Jesus said, blessed are those who have believed and yet not seen. That's not saying that somebody should just believe him just because he is, but Thomas walked with him for 3 years, and Jesus told him over and over and over and over that he was going to be delivered over to the Romans, and he was going to be crucified, and he was going to die, and he was going to rise again. And so it's not that he should have believed without evidence. So my whole thing is, I don't believe it's possible to even presuppose God. The only one who can presuppose God is God, because he has his own ego. He knows himself. But we don't have self-awareness of God unless it is communicated to us. This is my big thing. And so what I think presuppositionalism seeks to do is to kind of, I don't want to say it this way, it almost like rigs the game so it can never lose.
right.
And my problem is this, I don't think, if you're familiar with the story of Elijah on Mount Carmel with all the prophets of Baal, I don't think, I feel like presuppositionalism seeks to put diapers on God so nobody will question him, but it's my belief that if God really exists, he will show with fire. He will come. If he really exists, we don't need to be afraid that somebody's going to disprove him or anything like that. We should welcome inquiry. We should welcome rational thought, because God himself is logos, or rationality. I just, and the more interacting, I come across guys like John, and it's just like I'm becoming more and more alarmed that this is just a canard of an apologetic method, and I don't think it's historic, I don't think it's biblical, and I don't think it's helpful.
Well, I won't disagree with you there.
Yeah, so I appreciate inquiry, and I appreciate having rational discussions about these things. Like I said, if in fact God is rational, if He has made us rational beings and wants to interact with us rationally, we don't need to be afraid of the mind. It's a wonderful thing. It's God's glory manifested. I think one of the greatest problems of contemporary Christianity, from my perspective right now, is that it's irrational. I'm a big fan of R.C. Sproul. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he said, we're living in possibly the most anti-rational period in the history of the church. He says, not anti-educational, we're not anti-technology, we're anti-rational. And we've got to get the mind back if we're ever going to make any headway to finding meta-narrative and truth in this world.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say, well, by all means have at it, people like John Lawn, and I was in a hangout the other day with Nephilim Free, who is a young Earth creationist and things, and and he wants to talk about science and all of these things, and I kept telling him, look, this is the way I understand it from actual scientists who've taught my classes in high school and college and things, and every scientist that I've ever encountered anywhere has told me these things. If you want to disagree with them, that's your prerogative. But what I told him is, if you are in your Sunday school classes and teaching your students this and teaching the kids in your church this as a that it's vital to believe this way, to your faith, and that if you come to believe that evolution really is the best explanation, I said, you're setting up kids to fail, because I saw a whole class of kids come in as freshmen in college, and as we progressed through, when I went to not when I was at the Christian university, I did only really 3 semesters there. I couldn't afford it after that. But even at the Christian university, evolution was taught in the biology classes. But certainly at the secular university, I saw students that came in who had been homeschooled and things. This is Arkansas, and just exposed exclusively to creationist ideas and things. And I saw a lot of their faith just collapse, and a large percentage of those kids came out as atheists.
Well, let me put a stick in your spoke right here. I'm a young Earth creationist as well.
Oh, are you? Okay.
And what I've got to do is, here's my problem, Gavagai. I've got to have a consistent worldview. If you want to put something on my forehead right here when you see me, think of consistency. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some kind of explanation to save the phenomena, as Plato would put it. I want to come up with a worldview that is consistent. Now, and I cannot see how you can justify an old Earth with the Bible. Would you agree that it's pretty hard to do the gymnastics to make the Bible work? I know you don't believe in the Bible at all, but without a literal Adam and Eve, I mean, I don't believe in common descent. That's my big problem, I guess, because the Bible is meaningless if common descent is true.
I mean, I didn't have a problem, or I didn't see a problem with that when I was a believer, and even at the Christian university, my Bible professors, my biology professor, they all kind of supported the idea that this is the most likely and the most scientific explanation for our origins, and have understanding that we have to look at these other alternative explanations and look at how can we understand the Bible within that context. Now, on the outside of that, I can see it from your angle that would be problematic. When I was a believer, the way I understood it was, okay, this is a metaphor, and at some point maybe there was a divider line between this is the first man, quote unquote, that the God of the Bible designated as this is the starting point, and he gave that person a choice and had a woman that he designated as the first woman, whether or not they were created out of mud or what have you, but imbued into them some spark of rationality and cognitive capacity that was not there for their predecessors. That's kind of the way that I understood it. And then, as far as the rest of the creation story, it was that this God was responsible for all of creation, and the narrative of the story wasn't how it was done so much as it was just that he was responsible for it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a tack that many Christians take, but I'm too rational for that. It's not consistent, and it may sound like rational. What are you talking about, rational? But it is, because I mean, if Adam and Eve were not specially created, and then you've got sin in the world, you've got death and decay before Adam and Eve had the fall, and really the Bible doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I've never seen anybody be able to make a claim that would include common descent that makes any sense at all without throwing it totally into the category of allegory. And once you allegorize the first 11 chapters of Genesis, you basically denuded Christianity of any problem, really, of there being. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's why I'm a young Earth creationist. I'm open-minded. I could be wrong. But I've never seen any evidence that would make any sense otherwise. And a problem that I have with the Darwinian synthesis, and this is why I oftentimes mock it, because I think it's silly, that you have purpose without a purposer. In other words, Darwinian evolution, neo-Darwinianism, values, and this is what we were talking about on the other thread, I was trying to point out, it values existence. Existence is a goal, and you may say, well, no, it's just those that survive. Yeah, but as we discussed in our little thread there before, we are not like, you use the example of water flowing. We are not water flowing. We are purposive, personal creatures that are purposing to exist. Every moment of every part of our lives is all about existence. Every law that we make is to preserve existence. It's about value, and you can't have value accidentally. That's kind of like saying a bachelor with 3 wives. It's not there. You violate the law of identity by saying that accident produces purpose, because they are mutually exclusive, and one does not give rise to the other.
I mean, I would, to me, that we as individuals may have these values and things, but we didn't choose them. They're instilled in us, and I would say through this evolutionary process that is not directional, other than anything that helps to preserve the life and also to perpetuate it, so that there are more generations down the line is going to survive, and this will to live is a powerful evolutionary development, I would think. And now plants don't have it, right? Plants don't have a will. Obviously, they don't have desires, because they're not higher thinking beings. But there are other mechanisms that help perpetuate them, right?
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the whole, and I say this about every hangout I talk about when we talk about this. I mean, I can't help, whenever you read Darwin, especially if you look at the Descent of Man, he is so teleological with his language, and of course he would say he's teleonomical, which is teleology is having an ultimate goal or purpose. It's from telos, the Latin word, and teleonomy is to say that you have maybe a temporal or short-term goal, but not a long-term goal. And to me, it doesn't matter as long as there's any type of purpose. And so he would use this purposive language all the time. And you always hear evolutionists talk about how, with the language that like somehow that we are getting better, and we're growing, and they're all excited and happy about it. But they fail to recognize that they're talking about something that has no goal. And I don't care if it's a short goal or long-term goal. A goal is a goal, no matter how you cut it. And Darwin, when he said, on the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of the favored races in the struggle for life. And so you've got favored races are those that survive in the struggle for life. We're struggling to live. And the very title of his work is laden with teleological language. And it's like, don't tell me something makes itself before it exists. That's what it is. And this is why I mock Darwinian evolution. I think it's foolish. I think the only reason it was latched on to begin with is because it was really sexy in the day of Darwin to believe in spontaneous generation. That rats grew out of rags and stuff like that. And if it were not for that, Louis Pasteur was a contemporary to him, but his work was not widely known. If it were not for that, I don't think Darwinian evolution ever would have taken off. But that's the only reason it does. You can't have creation without a creator. It's just silly.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to disagree there. I think that you're forcing the intentionality there that to me is no different than the force of gravity working on water. This is what had to happen logically based on the perpetuation of living organisms. I mean, it's not that there was an intention. You don't need the intention. All you need, and it's my understanding that there's even software that is being used by engineers now, and all that the software does is kind of replicate the same processes. So for example, a system of cogs, and it gives off generations of cogs with slight variations, and then selects based on the efficiency. Well, I mean, efficiency in that scenario is what is being selected for, but in the natural world, all that's being selected for is just the ability to perpetuate your offspring, and produce another generation of offspring. So.
Okay, so is that program a product of purpose?
Well, in that situation, it is, sure.
Okay, so
but
I don't see how
it's. I mean, you could just they're selecting for one thing, just like we're breeding dogs, and we breed dogs because of our whimsical idea of we like them
our
to
purpose
look curly. Well, but we give it, right. So the selection that happens in nature, it defaults to survival, and that's not. That's just because that's what happens when you just let the system go.
Okay, so the system is programmed, though, right? We have replicating DNA for the purpose of survival, right?
No, DNA replicates because that's what it does. Just like water
it's programmed
flows.
to do that.
Water flows. Is water programmed?
No, but you see, all right. When you see DNA, I'm not going to put personhood to DNA, but I'm saying it is a program that has information that is for the purpose of survival. And then I would also secondly say that we, as sentient creatures, are purposive, and purpose cannot, by definition, come about accidentally.
I mean, again, I don't see that purpose is even a relevant term here.
Well, it has to be. Did you purpose to have this hangout?
Yes, but I'm
so
intentionally acting on the world.
Okay, so you have purpose then.
Right.
Okay, did that purpose happen accidentally?
No.
Okay. So you've got to have an objective purposer in order for there to be any purpose whatsoever, right?
Yes, but you're smuggling the idea of purpose into this natural process.
Are you part of the natural process?
I mean, I'm subject to some natural processes.
Did you see my hangout with Alex Botten?
Yes, I saw. I think I saw all of it.
It's reminiscent of it, I think, here.
Right.
But anyway, okay. Well, okay. I was thinking of something else, but it just seems real simple to me. I don't know where the conundrum is at all on this.
So can I? You said you've been a Christian for 28 years. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
What was it that initially kind of brought you to faith?
Um, what brought me initially to faith? I mean, can you hold on a second? Let me let the
Sure.
dog out. You know what? She wants water. Hold on just a sec.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Brought me to faith. Now, are you asking, did I, like, go through some...
Well, okay. Well, let's start before that. Like, what was your status before that? Were you a non-believer?
Okay, I just don't know what you wanted me to say. Yeah, I can give you a little bit of my testimony. I grew up in a... my mom is a charismatic Presbyterian, as odd as that may sound. She had an experience, a born-again experience. I don't know, she was a young mother, I think, or something. And so my father is not a believer, and so I grew up in a Presbyterian church that was pretty much dead, the church we were going to, and I was very shy. I'm a very shy person until I get to know people. And I went to church, and I was so shy that I discovered that drinking would help me to come out of my shell and be more personable, and I started to develop a drinking problem. And I wasn't involved in church or anything at all like that. And I was struggling because I made a fool of myself, and I said, I remember one time coming home drunk saying, God help me, and I wasn't even old enough to drink. It's been back when beer was 18, 32 beer at 18.
I was going to ask how old you were.
Yeah, well, I was probably 16 at that time. And I just felt like it was taking control of me, and I'd always make a fool of myself, and I was embarrassed and stuff. So I said, God, please help me with this situation. And I remember I just wanted him to help me out of this situation, and nothing happened. And then I did it again and made a fool of myself. And I remember coming home saying, God, I'll just give this. I was not born again, and I was not a Christian as this, but I said, God, I'll give this life, this drinking life, to you, because I saw myself as headed toward alcoholism, and I was terrified. And I know this is going to sound silly, but my desire for alcohol left me completely. And I was like, I don't know if this is true. I had no desire to drink, and I couldn't help myself before. And I said, I'm going to test it. And I went with my friends out, and I drank like 2 beers, and I got a little buzz, and I felt terrible. And I was like, this is real. And I've not had a drinking problem since then. But anyway, so when I turned 18, I stopped drinking, ironically, and then they came out with, they moved everything up to 21 shortly thereafter. And I was terrible in school. I never did well in school. And I'm the type of person, I've got to have a carrot in front of me to give me, I got to see the reason for something to go for it. And if I see the reason for it, I'll jump for it. If I don't, I've got 2 switches, Warp 7 and Stone Cold 0. And so I'm one of those guys. I'm just really extreme. And so in high school, I saw no reason for studying. I don't go for power, and I don't go for rich. I don't care about being rich or anything like that. So I thought, well, what's the use? I don't really care to work hard. So when I was in high school, I just wanted to just get by, and I got terrible grades, and I just didn't do well at all. And I'm always boasting sometimes my atheist friends. I think I got a 10 or 11 on my ACT my senior year in high school. And anyway, I graduated high school. I didn't know what I was going to do and didn't know where I was going to go. And my dad said, well, you got to go JUCO year to prove yourself so you get the grade. So I limped through a few classes at junior college, and then I went to KU, and I lasted a semester and dropped out. And all this time I'm trying to read my Bible, and I'm getting some interest in Christianity. And my mom would take me to things. She was responsible for a lot of my spiritual growth. I think she took me to these missionaries with Youth with a Mission that were speaking at our church. We started going to different churches, had a little more life to it. And there were some missionaries there, and I went and listened to them, and she wanted me to go on a short-term outreach with them. They have short-term outreaches, and then they have like a year-long school. And after going to that meeting, I said, I want to go to the school. And my mom was like, oh, okay. And so several months later in the summer, she took me down there and dropped me off in the middle of nowhere at an old chicken farm in Arkansas. And it was now I don't know how, I'm not a real strong supporter of that organization, but God really used it in my life. And I never understood the gospel. I thought that I was always told, believe in Jesus, receive him into your heart and you go to heaven. And I used to walk the aisle every time as much as I could to make sure, because nothing had changed. And I learned down there that to become a Christian means that you give your life over to Christ and make him Lord of your life, and just turn over your reins to him. And when I realized that, I don't even know exactly when it happened. It was in the first semester. It was 1986 in the fall. Everything changed for me. And it was like, I mean, I was born again, and everything from then on out, and it was like heaven on earth for me as well. So that's kind of the roughshod detail of how I became a Christian.
Okay. Would you say that we're on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being there's no way that you could be unconvinced that what your beliefs are true. Where would you say you fall? And 1 is where or 0, let's say 0 to 10, and 0 is that you don't believe at all. Where would you fall on that scale?
You mean how open I am to being possible that I could be wrong?
Yeah, sure.
You're gonna think I'm weird. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry, hold on just a minute. She needs more water.
No problem.
I am so sorry. She'll scratch on the door if she either wants to go out or she wants water. And I've got this little bowl for her, and the bowl doesn't have enough water, doesn't hold enough water. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that I could be wrong, is that what you're saying?
No, 10 being that you couldn't be wrong, you're absolutely convinced, and let's say 1 or 0, whatever you want, is where you are convinced, or you don't have any belief at all.
Oh, well, I was going to say I'm like a 0 because I'm completely open to the fact that I could be wrong. Most people say, especially presuppositionals, they couldn't be wrong. I could be wrong about everything that I know. Okay. The thing is you got to give me reason for it. You got to make your case and make it compelling to me. But I could be wrong about the existence of God. It's pretty hard. I don't know if you've heard me give my argument. It's an analytic argument, so you're pretty much going to have to jettison rationality to do so, but I'm open to it because I don't shill for Christianity, but I am looking for truth, and I follow God not because I love God. I love God because I believe He is, and it's true. And if it's not true, I don't want to waste my time with it. Why would I want to mess with that? I think it's ridiculous. Okay. Why live a life of fantasy when you can have reality?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where I was, a few years ago. Let me see. I don't know. Do you have another question for me?
No, not really.
Well, let me ask you this. So you favor an analytic argument. Is it like the Leibnizian, or what do you?
No, not Leibnizian. That's what they. I've been blacklisted by several atheists now. It's kind of funny. Because they've tagged me with the Leibnizian argument, which it's not. It's similar to it, but it's just a basically Thomistic cosmological argument. Things don't make themselves before they exist. It's really simple, which is, I have the 2 presuppositions of basic sense perception in order to know that I exist, and then I have the law of non-contradiction, and I rationally, it's actually even a scientific argument, I would say. I realize that I exist, and then I realize that I am not self-existent. I was born, I'm dependent for my existence, and therefore something must exist with the attribute of self-existence. not only have I never lost the argument, I've never had a serious challenge as of yet. So, but I'm open. I could be wrong. Same thing with young Earth creationists. I'm not as sure about young Earth creationism as I am about God's existence, but I feel fairly confident about it, but not nearly as much.
Okay. Pardon. That just seems really strange to me. Like there's nothing else. I would hazard a guess that you would say, okay, does this thing exist? Is there some philosophical argument that would allow me to get to the question of whether or not this thing is in reality, right? Like if I said, okay, do you believe in ghosts? I'm asking you actually right now, do you believe in ghosts?
I have no reason to.
Okay.
Why would I?
So if I said, okay, I've got a, let's say it's a cosmological argument for the existence of ghosts, would that be persuasive to you?
No, because you don't have it.
Well, I don't. You're right. But just the idea that
you're not understanding the difference. You're making up a hypothetical, which is fantastic with no evidence, and I'm giving you an argument with evidence, and you're saying,
well, but an argument's not evidence, right?
Sure it is. My existence is evidence, is it not? It's scientific evidence, right?
You're something tangible that we can see. I can see your
image.
That's right. I can hear.
And am I self-existent?
Yeah, I would guess.
No, I'm not self-existent.
Okay.
Self-existent means you're not dependent for anything.
I'm sorry. Yeah. You're not self-existent. No.
Okay. So, and if I'm going to hold the law of
non-contradiction,
well, that's exactly right. And so, if you're going to be rational and say the law of non-contradiction is true, something cannot be and not be at the same time in the same relationship, then there must be something that is personal, because we are personal, that has the capacity to exist without being dependent. That is eternal.
I think that's a huge jump that doesn't follow.
How does it not follow? I mean, this gets to the point where I just crack up now because people just are grasping at straws. How does it not follow?
Well, I mean, okay, so is my dog self-existent?
No, because he was born.
Right.
He starves if you don't feed him.
Does it follow that there is a self-existent dog out there somewhere?
Well, I guess you could, with this argument, you could say it could be a dog, I suppose. I mean, you have to keep thinking it through.
But it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't follow. I think that I don't see any reason to believe that there's a self-existent dog or a self-existent cat or a self-existent fish.
Okay, then what is the
self-existent person?
Okay, so what is the justification for your existence? Logically speaking, employing the law of non-contradiction.
No, why do I need a logical justification? I have an empirical justification that
empiricism is based upon the law of non-contradiction. One half the scientific method is deduction. If you don't have deduction, you have no science. And you also have philosophical presupposition that underlies that. This is the problem with science today, is that they have thrown metaphysics out of the window, and they come up with these goofy statements like, Stephen Hawking talking about gravity, everything coming out of nothing because such a thing as gravity exists, or Lawrence Krauss with his equivocation tricks that he plays with what nothing is and stuff. They play all these silly games. And Richard Dawkins, you just hear him say the most foolish things, and it just makes me laugh. And I'm not even I'm a tooth maker. But I listen to this stuff, and I can analyze their arguments and just say it's foolishness. And I don't know. I
mean, I don't know. I'm not a cosmologist either, so I couldn't speak, and I really don't follow them closely. It doesn't affect my life very much at all, so they're kind of on the periphery for me. But and there are some comments that they make that I also would say are not philosophically very sound, but
well, let me tell you the history. The thing that really helped me and helps me to think through these things, like I said, was R.C. Sproul. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's probably the greatest mentor, teaching-wise. Practically speaking, probably my pastor, but for the teaching that I've received in my life would be R.C. Sproul. And he has an overview of Western philosophy called Consequences of Ideas. And I tell you what, I've never heard anything that even comes close to that. He can make unity out of diversity like nobody I've seen. And basically, this whole thing goes back to the Kantian revolution, around the revolution of the American Revolution, about the same time. And he basically said that you can't know certain things. You can't know yourself. You can't know God, and you can't know the Ding an sich, which is the thing, essences of things. He placed them in a category called the noumenal realm, and he said, so basically he made the separation between what you can touch and what you can't touch, and what you can't touch you can't know for sure, because they're always fraught with antinomies and contradictions and stuff that you can't deal with. Anyway, he made a devastating critique to philosophy, and so basically philosophy is, especially contemporary, is categorized into pre-Kantian and post-Kantian, but I think Kant made some serious mistakes. And so what I want to do is I want to go back and address the problems of his thinking and regain some rational thought in metaphysics. So what we have in science today is we have a separation between philosophy and science, whereas they need to be together if you want to have a unified, coherent thinking about these things. Even Ozymandias Ramses II, he's had some really wonderful critiques about that as well, and he points out some really good things on that. I'm on his blacklist as well too. But he has some really good thoughts about that we need to get back to some uniting philosophy with science. Otherwise, you're like a one-winged bird, flying in a circle. You can't really have balance.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't disagree that science needs philosophy, but I don't know. Just the idea of positing the existence of something based on an analytic argument, and I mean, if you had mathematics or something like that and said, well, there must be a thing that exists because we've got this gap in an equation, right? Like they did with this Higgs boson particle or whatever it was, that might be some valid reasoning or something like that that I could say, okay, yeah, I can see that, but that doesn't tell you that it's a person. And
well, are you a person?
I am a person, yes.
Okay, so can something transmit a property that it itself does not contain?
Sure.
Okay, so something, say for example, again, we're talking about mutually exclusive properties. You've got something that impersonality, impersonal material can purpose into existence. That's basically what you have to rely on with your perspective. And I say that violates the law of identity. You can't do that. Something that does not purpose cannot purpose by definition.
Yeah, well,
and yet we have purpose. We have contingent purpose.
Well, okay. There again, though, I think you're asserting purpose with no foundation for that. We have purpose that we determine.
And we're contingent creatures, right?
Yes.
Okay, so contingency cannot create something before it exists, right?
Contingency cannot create something.
In other words, if I want to
anything that we create is post-existence. Yes.
That's right. And so since all the existence that we know that we're talking about is post-existence, we could not have created purpose before purpose existed, right?
Well, no, but once we exist, we determine the purpose, and it's an ongoing process. So my purpose in life now is not the same as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, but we're not talking about what type of purposes we're having. We're talking about an on and off switch. It's off, and then it's on, and the off cannot give rise to the on. That's
But
the
I
whole
don't think
problem.
I don't think that that's the way things work. And I
Well,
think
because you don't like it, but I mean, but you can't
no,
rationally
that's not.
justify it.
It has nothing to do with what I like. It has to do with what I observe. I mean,
Yeah, I
there
would
are
agree.
people who live aimless lives that don't seem to have any kind of purpose or direction whatsoever.
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're not. I'm talking about the actual existence of purpose. I'm not saying some people are purpose or some people are better purposers than others. It's just the fact that purpose exists. That's what I'm addressing.
Well, we are the ones who give purpose. I mean, there's uh, a, a hair, a dog hair on the floor next to me. Um, what is the purpose of that dog hair on the floor? To be vacuumed?
Well, if that dog hair causes death, this is your whole world centers around existence. So if that dog hair, say for example, if it sat for 30 minutes, would cause death in your house, well, the purpose of getting rid of the dog hair would be to survive.
My whole uh, existence is not my purpose.
Sure, it is.
No, it's not.
Every decision that you make is for the purpose of existence.
No, I and in fact, as we covered a little bit of this in our back and forth on that post this afternoon. Um, if my existence comes to a point where it is unpleasant uh, to the extreme and not likely to improve, or if I know, for pretty much for a fact that it's going to maintain or sustain that level of discomfort or get worse, I would very willingly end my existence um, and not cling to it, because existence with extensive suffering is not interesting to me at all.
Okay, but that's only because you gave up, right?
No, it's because it's not what I
If
want.
if you had hope to have an existence without suffering, would you continue to exist?
Um, I don't know that I would want to exist for eternity either.
Okay,
Even if it was, I mean, just existence itself um, doesn't hold a particular interest to me.
okay.
Uh,
So why don't you kill yourself right now?
because I'm happy, I'm interested, I find life interesting and fulfilling.
Okay.
But it's without this sense of fulfillment and interest and I mean, if I was Job and um, and afflicted with diseases and lost my whole family and everything that I had ever lived and worked for, I'm not sure I'd be interested in existing anymore.
Because you lost hope, right?
Well, sure.
Okay. So every single law that we pass in our society is for the purpose of promoting existence. Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Oregon has what do they call it? Death with
Right to die?
yeah.
Okay. Now, that point taken, that is an example of a giving up on the existence. In other words, you get to the point where you say, I just can't do this anymore. Uh, I'm going to give up. Now, what if Oregon passed a law that said that perfectly healthy people should kill themselves with no reason whatsoever? What would you think of that?
Um, well, I mean, we don't
If
generally
you're,
pass laws that say someone should do X, right?
well, sure we do. Yeah, people should not run red lights. People
Well,
should
no,
not
it's
leave their children alone.
the law says it's illegal. You may not. It doesn't say you should not.
I don't see the difference
The, well,
in the context of our conversation.
Okay, maybe.
So let me give you this answer. You got your best friend, okay, and your best friend is very discouraged because his girlfriend has left him, and he wants to take his life. What is your counsel to him?
Oh, well, I mean, in that situation, if it's just a relationship that he had, I would try to encourage him. I mean, I think existence is important to us, but it's not the pinnacle of.
It's everything. No, it's everything. Everything. The only reason you embrace suicide or something like that is because you gave up. Because you say, well, I can't have that. And
but
so,
if that's the case, then there's something beyond existence that's important to us, right?
That's why you give up. Because you're convinced that there's not.
Right, but it's that thing that's beyond that. It's our level of comfort and satisfaction with life, and but I don't advocate ending your life. Certainly, when there's any possibility whatsoever that you could have some improvement of your situation and things. And I mean, we all go through kind of dark phases and things where things are difficult for us.
That's right.
I think it's important. I certainly value existence, but again, there's something beyond mere existence. And if for example, if I was in an eternity of existence that where things didn't change, where everything was always the same, and and it was just perpetual sameness, that is not an existence that would interest me. And I'm not saying that that's what heaven,
Well, when I say about existence, I'm not just talking about having a beating heart and brainwaves moving, but I'm talking about existence with fullness. Remember, Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Mm-hmm. What I would say we're all searching for is significance. And when I say existence, I mean significant existence, which the Bible teaches is what we lost in Eden. Adam and Eve were shamed, and they were ashamed of themselves. They lost their significance, and they were shamed and had to, wear clothes. And so I think that what we're at is what we're looking for, and what you're looking for is
nakedness.
Significance. Is what?
Nakedness.
No, actually, you want to be naked without being ashamed, because there's a link between our sin and our having to wear clothes.
I can be naked without being ashamed.
Oh yeah, go to work tomorrow. Try that.
Even nudists. It's not a matter of being ashamed. Like it's a matter of being culturally unacceptable there.
Yeah, but even nudist colonies have shower curtains, so people can act like it's not there, but nobody really does. Anyway, listen, my friend. It's 9 o'clock, and I want to spend a little time with my son before he goes to bed. But I thank you for having this conversation. I enjoyed it. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet your acquaintance here too.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll run into each other again. And I'm kind of ride the fringes of the Google community of the Great Debate. I don't really like it. It gets really ugly, and I just check. I'm mostly a Facebook guy, but when I get on Google Plus, it's like there's so much vitriol and so much poison. It seems like going between the camps that it just kind of grieves me somewhat.
Yeah, I agree, and I really try to stay away from the I don't know, all the drama and things, but
so I like to jump in, and I enjoy doing it, but it's like I don't like hangouts with a lot of people either. Like I said, I'm kind of timid around people I don't know really well, and I'm not really comfortable. I love having hangouts like this where we can just talk freely and enjoy each other's company. But I don't. At least at this point, I jumped into one of Xboxes last night, hangouts for a few minutes, and it was okay. But I just feel kind of, I don't know, when there's 8 or 10 people there, it's like I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, well, who gets to talk when, and all that. It's too much going on. So I like just having small hangouts where you have 2 or 3 people talking, and it's more enjoyable for me.
All right. Well, let's do it again sometime.
Okay. Well, it's nice meeting you, Gavagai, and all the best to you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Same to you.
Okay. Bye. All right. Bye.